Let's get into our tarot and oracle reading for today and see what comes up for the collective. I know personally I have some positive things happening, but let's see what is going on for everyone else. Very interesting. We have some returning themes, but they are actually reversed now instead of how they were before. I will start with the central part of this reading, which was the first card to pop out, and it was Ten of Wands. So some of us are doing way too much, like way more than what's expected of us. Like you're just like going above and beyond, and it's like, for what reason is what I'm getting from this. Like, how is it benefiting you in particular? I also have Judgment reversed, so I think that maybe it comes from this idea that you believe that you're supposed to behave in this way or something like that. Like you think that you're supposed to go above and beyond and make everybody like see you as like somebody who's like ultra reliable or ultra something, but it's just not really like realistic to what you can actually handle. Whenever we have the moon here, so yesterday it was in reverse, which was telling me like we're going through disillusionment, so people are opening up to the idea that things aren't what they seem. But I kind of get the feeling that somebody right now is definitely like kind of drinking the Kool-Aid. Like you are definitely like subscribing to this. You're falling back into the same patterns again of feeling like if you just like you can just work yourself out of certain situations, versus like people can't really like perform out of certain things. You know what I mean? Like we can do our best to obviously make a joyful life. Yesterday I got a lot of, I got a reading about, or was it yesterday? I don't know. Sometime recently, about like finding joy. I also have the Tower reversed here too. And so I kind of feel, I'm just getting a really strong sense that there's some denial going on and that like we're living in Delulu land. And then also with this like Temperance reversed, I'm getting as well that it's like there's an imbalance with it. You know what I mean? Like it's just not something that's helpful or conducive for whoever it is that's putting so much responsibility on their shoulders. I think that maybe you're just falling back into like usual routines of like everybody expecting you to do everything, and you're just like subscribing to that and not really challenging it because you feel like it's your place or something like that is really what I'm getting here. The worker bee showed up for us again, and it showed up, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, I don't know. But the worker bee is definitely like recontributing to that idea of like, what are we working towards, right? Like, and with that Tower reversed and the Ten of Wands, I feel like you're trying to prove your worth through your work and not necessarily like giving yourself the space to be human. I also have direction here. And so I feel like the direction that you're attempting to go into is one that's filled with like a false sense of like security whenever it comes to judgment. Like for some reason, you're really subscribing to the idea that that your value is through work and that people won't judge you if you're doing a good job at work, and not really considering like the reality of the situation. Basically, I also have goodness here, so I think we're really getting into kind of like some purity like themes here, almost like this idea of goodness, this idea of approval, this idea of wanting other people to see you, like think of you highly, to the point of like where you're not prioritizing yourself with that Temperance reverse. Like the priority is on this perceived goodness as like a package that was like designed for you, and it's not necessarily like what the truth is, if that makes sense. I have duality here as well, and I think that you have to remember that there are two sides to everybody. I think what might be making you give into this a little bit is I think that there might be some sort of like love bombing going on with that, like the moon, you know what I mean? Like that little bit of Delulu-ness and the goodness worker bee, you know what I mean? I think that there is some sort of like false future, there's like some future faking, some love bombing, something like that with someone in your life. And I think that you and you want to be good because you want their approval, right? And maybe you feel like it gives you some sort of purpose because it's something that you've been told your entire life, so you don't want to challenge it with that direction card, I'm really getting that feeling. So what I think you need to remember with duality is that everybody has multiple sides of themselves, right? And so we all have a good side and we all have a bad side. A lot of people think their bad side is their true self. I don't think that it's necessarily true. I think that you're both sides. So who you are in a conflict and the choices you make is like who you are. That's not permanent, and like you don't have to be that way forever, but you do have to make a change and behave differently. And so a lot of people are like, they'll be their absolute worst self towards someone, like absolutely just like abusive and manipulative and horrible, because they think that that's their true self. And if this person can accept their true self, then that person is acceptable. There are also people who believe in their false image so much that they believe that that is their true self. So anything that is in opposition to this like false identity they have where they're perfect becomes like such a challenge, and it becomes like an instinctual like defense mechanism almost. Like if you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist or something like that, whenever you realize that they're a narcissist and the veil is kind of like, it reveals like who they really are, then that's whenever, or the veil, sorry, I don't know how to say it, but whenever it's revealed and you see them for who they really are, they act totally different. They're angry towards you, they're resentful towards you, they discard you, they remove you from their group, they isolate you from other people because they don't want it getting out that they are not their false image, right? Instead of like making the actions to be a better person or like holding themselves accountable, like, hey, you know what, you're right, that wasn't cool of me. They might even hold themselves accountable occasionally, right? Like you might occasionally get an apology or something, but then they'll just continue to do the same behavior over and over and over again. So what you have to remember in relationships with people is that they are both sides of themselves. They're the good side and the bad side. Does the good outweigh the bad? That's something to consider. And that's something you have to think about in your relationships. That's something I learned from Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, I think was the book. I also read The Body Keeps Score. So either one of those, I read them like at the same time, kind of like talks about that and how we think like in our relationships with our parents, we think our parents are only the good side. And whenever they're bad, we think of that as like an outlier or like just a random moment or something. And we kind of like discard it and dismiss it, especially like when you're a child and your approval with them is based on your survival. Like they'll only feed you if they like you, right? Like this is what we tell ourselves as children. So like subconsciously, and so we dismiss the negative parts because we want the good parts so bad. And we have to remember that they're both parts. So does the good outweigh the bad? Can you work through the bad? These are these things to think about whenever we're thinking about duality and we're thinking about this imbalance. You know what I mean? Like, are you tipping too much over into believing that this is suddenly good now and that the bad is gone now, even though they haven't really proven to you that the bad doesn't exist anymore? And what is it doing for you? We have this worker bee, good little worker, your goodness card that, feeling like this gives you a life purpose, putting all of your judgment of yourself into this like situation or this person, thinking that this is going to be what's different for you, and totally ignoring from the Tower reversed what you've learned in the past. Like you've already had this kind of like kick you in the butt before, but you're just not listening this time around. The Dreamer here. So you have this idealistic, especially right next to the moon, wow, and the Judgment reversed. You have this idealistic idea of what you want your relationship to look like. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an expectation of like, because most of the time when you listen to women and what they want, right? They want like the most basic, like, just like humanity from a partner. They want someone they don't have to take care of. They want someone who loves them. They want someone that's kind to them. All those things, right? And then a lot of men cannot even live up to that, right? I'm just using generalizations. It can be opposite genders, whatever, that have this dynamic. But this is just like usually what we keep seeing. And obviously it's an issue society-wise because both men and women talk about it. So obviously it exists. But like this person is not that, is basically what I'm saying. And trying to make this person that ends up being a disservice to you, and you're having to do all the work. You're having to live in Delulu land to even just like cope. So it's important for you to kind of like recognize that that is not where you need to be, and maybe start analyzing a little bit more about like why it's so important for you to buy into it again. Why are you here again? What are you doing that's making you do this again? So I'm running out of time now, but this message felt like very particular for certain people. Let me know if it resonated with you. Please interact with my video in some way if you've made it this far, or follow me if you don't already so you can get more content like this. But yeah, thanks, and I'll see you next time.